Welcome back, kids, to the yard. I'm your host, Darryl Scotti, coming to you again from Big Yard Nation here at Pyramid Studios in Phoenix, Arizona. We're here today, and I'm just jazzed to be with you guys. We've got our producer, Alex Chacon, and of course, Duane Woods was a producer here at Pyramix and was our engineer through our sessions. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. This has been a great honor, and just excited today to be doing all this with you guys. I've had the privilege of working with both of you, and I want to hear about some of your thoughts. Duane, let me ask you, what's your ideal process for recording, let's say, a 5-piece group?
Well, the first thing I like to do is get with the band, talk with them, get to know who they are a little bit, and then get a quick demo recording, be it at a venue where they're playing a live show, their rehearsal space, or I can even have them come down to the studio for a couple hours. We do a really quick mic setup. I'm not concerned so much about tone. I'm not concerned about proper mic placement. I'm not concerned about their performances being perfect. What I'm really wanting to try to get is who this band is. What's their identity? Are they aggressive and loud? Are they more, detailed and precise? And that's going to answer a lot of questions for me in the live performance and find out what are their abilities or their proficiencies on their instruments. And then we have those recordings, and I can take them back and digest them for however many days or weeks it is up till we get time for the recording. That way I'm a lot more intimate with the band before we even step in the room. So that right there is a huge amount of legwork before we ever even really get to the glamorous recording process,
So it's getting to know them.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Know what they're about, know what they're doing. Just coming in, off the street, never even heard them before, and having them perform, and you're actually recording them. There's so many questions that would be running through my head. I would be like, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. So having all of that information ahead of time gets us ready. I'm talking to them, kind of knowing their personalities, is drummer's going to be in the morning. Is he kind of a grumpy dude? Is he a morning guy, Do I need to
That's a lot of detail.
It is, but it really matters when you were in the service industry to an extent.
Sure.
So we don't think about that as we're engineers, producers, but we're also managing egos, wanting people to feel good about themselves, coming into the studio with as little anxiety as possible. And some of that comes from those earlier meetings and pre-production, and letting them know, hey, it's okay. I'm not going to throw anything at you, just come in, perform your parts. We're not saving lives. It's art,
I love that.
So then we get the guys in, we get the drums, and we get scratch tracks with everybody ready. Drums are all mic'd up, and we get our drum performances. Then depending on the style of music, usually the bass comes next. All the guitar tracks then are coming after that. This could be over a period of several days, or depending, it could be just a single, and we'd be grinding that all out in one day to get all the tracking done. Then we get all of our vocals, backing vocals, harmonies, anything else that needs to be done. And that's essentially the recording process leading us up for editing and mixing.
Sure. Well, on our session, the 54th Street sessions, we brought you all the basic tracks. Alex brought them down to you before I even met you, and we started laying the live drums down here at Pyramid Studios. And so was that helpful when you and Alex got together? And then we'll talk a little bit about Alex's process, but was that helpful for you?
Absolutely, because we already had some scratch tracks, but a lot of already ready to go tracks. Mm-hmm. And the songs were already, basically they were arranged, and everything, I could hear what was going on there in a way that there was a lot of detail already provided, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So by the time that Jonathan was here putting drums down, and I'm listening to a lot of the other stuff going on, I'm already getting a real good feel for these songs. So before the horns even got here, now I'm like, all right, I'm feeling what's going on. And then the horns coming on, you're like, all right. And you catch your head bobbing in the control room.
I noticed your head bobbing a lot during the session.
Oh, yeah.
I'd also say, too, since we work with you, or we have worked with you quite a bit, there wasn't as much pre-production as somebody that was brand new for you. So, knowing who's coming into the studio, and there's not as much pre-production, right, for that?
No, and in this case, because you are the producer on this project, I knew any of the fears that I would have, concerns because of questions I didn't get to ask and get answers, you'd already dealt with that.
Right.
So that allows me to be more, at that point, engineer. I'm going to make sure my levels are good, listen for any anomalies in the recording during the process, and I don't have to focus so much on, is he supposed to perform it that way? I'm kind of detaching myself from the performances, and more I'm on the mechanical engineering side and letting you do your thing. So in a case like that, I don't need as much, as far as pre-production, because you had already done a ton of that.
Right.
Well, before I ask Alex the same question, I noticed how you guys had a rapport repartee, so to speak, in terms of working together. But I noticed that Alex, before we really got started with the sessions, and before I had even met Duane, that you spent some time with those tracks. You were going through them, you were doing editing and whatnot. I would assume that was in preparation of coming down here and working with Duane. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so you're tracking drums, and you have your drummer for one day. You want to be as prepared as possible for these session players to come in and lay down their parts. And the more organized that you're going to be, the more easily the session will flow. And you want things to be right. You don't want to be detailing and fixing things that we're probably like, oh, we can do that. We probably should have did that before. Hold on. Give us 10 minutes,
Sure.
of your time for, even though, we're paying for session players, we need to make sure that we're prepared for them to track.
Well, that makes sense, because if I recall, when we came in and laid all the live drums down, I think we got those 6 tracks done inside of about 8 hours. That seems pretty quick. So I think pre-preparation was really important. So back to that question in terms of the process, Alex, walk us through a little bit of the preparation if you were to be recording your band or another band, or just even reflecting on our project, the 54th Street Sessions.
So my ideal process is actually very close to Duane's process. But I mean, in my perfect world situation, we do all of the creating the music and have all the parts and the elements basically made out before we make it into the studio, which is basically your scratch track. And then we come into the studio, ideal situation, bass, drums, guitar, rhythm section, all tracking at the same time together, because you're playing with musicians that are able to do that. Play through the tracks 4 or 5 times, comp what you need to. You have your comp track, you have your 3 playlists, 4 playlists, comp where you need to, and then you can do all the additives and the vocals and things like that afterwards. But in most settings, I'd say Duane's process is really, that's the way to do it. You need to know your client. You need to do the pre-production with them. You need to hear their demos or create demos for them so you have an idea of the songs. And then you come in, you have a structured plan on how you're going to attack it, because not every drummer can play to a click. You know what I mean? Not every drum, there's so many different processes, and there's so many things that you have to be versatile to pivot for certain musicians and their different levels of technicality. And
Wow.
And I wanted to ask you, where did you get your your process? Because my process is very similar to yours, and I was thinking about this, and I'm like, where did this process come from? Like, why was it drums and bass first? You know what I mean? Why is it always drums first?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, we did it when I went to the conservatory about 20 years ago, and that was the way that they had done it there, and kind of was not necessarily an industry standard, but a common way to do things. But my answer to that, the reason why, is the drums are just about the most complex instrument that we are going to work with, and it is an instrument. It is one big living beast. When you
With
got
a bunch
guys
of
like,
mics around it.
yeah, and now you got to get anywhere from 8 to 16 microphones to coexist together.
Wow.
We're listening for bleed. Maybe this guy's really soft on his brass, but he's just beating that snare like it owes him money. We got to work with that. That's going to take a little time. So there's a lot of complexity within that giant instrument. So I think probably the reason we want to track that first is to have that under control and have a lot of those variables accounted for at that point.
Yeah, incredible. A little behind the scenes for our viewers and our listeners. When I first started to produce this record with Alex, and we got started, and we're going to talk about collaboration. We've been through our other episodes talking a lot about collaboration, but one of the first things that Alex and I did before we got started, he had heard the songs and he had heard my demos for the songs that we were getting ready to record. But you started the flow chart. You actually had me get a whiteboard, And you said, okay, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to grid this. We'll go across here, and then you put the drums and the bass and the guitar and the voice and the horns and then, the additives and
Additives.
all of that stuff on it. And we literally went through, this is an incredible process. And if you haven't done it this way, I highly encourage you to do it. But we went through it, literally checked things off. And we would almost celebrate it. It's like, you would say to me, dude, yeah, you got all the drums done. Now you got all the bass done.
Yeah.
And it was really, and I'm assuming that's the reason you did that is because as producers, you learned to do it kind of in that way, in a sequence. And so you wanted to keep it organized.
Yeah, and I like to expand on that. One reason, or another reason that I like doing the whole whiteboard setup is this process can be tedious, it can be arduous. We can lose our passion for the song after hearing it so many times. We need, as humans, little gifts, little successes. And when you're checking stuff off that board, you realize that check meant progress. We're this much closer to having the vision. And those are the kinds of things that helps keep the artists who tend to want to wander sometimes and keep them on track and help them focus that, yes, it may not feel like it, but we are seriously making great progress with this project.
Well, thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. As a songwriter, we hear that song hundreds of times before you guys even start your work. And you're right. I did feel that. I felt that progress and celebrated those little check marks as we were going through it. Now we're almost all the way through that.
And as well as what you said with songwriters wanting to drift away into, oh, let's do this and that. But like we need to get the fundamentals down, and that is the very basis as to why I love that board, because it's progress. We got all the drums done. The drums are done. Thank you. Or we got all the bass done and we get the guitar done, and it gives you that process of, it's funny, you went to conservatory, I did too, but it's like, is that where that came from? Are they teaching us to do drums first?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that.
But yeah, absolutely. The board, it's a necessity in my workflow, and it's those little things, little progress.
Yeah.
Well, here in the yard and on these episodes, we've been talking a lot about collaboration through different levels of the process. So collaboration in songwriting, which is what I was able to do more ever in my songwriting career and collaborate on this project. But I see now the collaboration effort through into the studio with the studio musicians and with the producers. And so if you've looked back at any other episodes, you're going to hear a lot about collaboration. And I think that's a really key important if you're just getting started and you're just starting to write or you're learning how to play. But let's talk about the importance of collaboration from the music standpoint as producers, engineers. Walk us through that.
Well, I think that collaboration is essential for an artist's growth. It really is, because you can be the greatest writer in the world. You're in your own corner writing all of your songs, and these are great songs, but then somebody steps into the room with you one day and offers you some perspective, something that you cannot see through your own eyes.
Untangible.
Exactly. And to sit and write with somebody, and you're thinking, okay, in my mind, we're going to go from this to this. And they suggest, well, we're going to go from here to here. And in your mind, you're like, I would have never went that direction. That is great. And you can incorporate that into your own set of tools for writing. And what I mean is you learn little isms from different writers as you work with them. And you can take some of those things, some of those tools that they use. And that doesn't happen if you're unwilling to collaborate or you don't embrace what collaboration has to offer you.
Well, that's well said. And from a guy who's been doing this for, many years. I mean, my career is probably longer than Alex's lifespan. And I've learned so much from you in terms of collaboration and how you went about the process. Just watching you was, and both you guys working together, it was almost like going to school. It was incredible, and I truly mean that. When you get a chance as a songwriter and as an artist to work with professionals who not only love their work and are good at their work, but are willing to share that, it's a magical time. So, man, great. And Alex, you want to add something to that?
I mean, perspective. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely huge with collaborating. I mean, it's something that everyone needs. I mean, you need to, whether it's a good perspective, maybe you're getting a little bit critiqued, or maybe assurance. Like, a lot of times in our sessions, I have my opinion on things, but I fall back on you, Duane. I'll say, "What do you think, Duane?" to make sure that it's good, or I want that extra assurance, and that's the collaboration between you and me. That's this sounds good, and you work with so many different people all the time, like all different kinds of levels of technicality and experience. And I value your opinion as a producer and somebody that's organizing and getting this session to flow. It's important to me to also you gotta step back for a second and say, Duane, is it okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Having that other voice there that you trust.
Yeah.
Going, all right, I'm hearing this. Are you hearing that?
Right.
Good. Then we're on this. It's just a little bit more reassurance. But also, again, I'm watching you work with Darryl during that process. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a few of these little things that we're doing tracking wise and how you were building your comps. They're essentially the same, but they're different in some ways, and that goes back to what we talked about, taking those tools from the songwriter and learning, as a musician, but also working with other engineers and producers going,
Right.
oh, all right. And what was the little trick about popping it, that one little box, I had kept that update on and knew that just a simple little editing trick. Well, if I would close up under a rock and not want to work with other people,
Right.
not be open-minded to see things something different.
That's
You're not going to grow. You're not going to grow as a musician or as an engineer. So,
And as engineer, producer, you guys had a really great way of kind of connecting and respecting one another and giving Alex what he needed and letting Alex get what you needed. And so
this guy right here is an amazing producer, engineer here at Pyramix. I would highly suggest this place for anyone trying to get anything done. I know that I'm a producer and I record people as well, but you've done excellent work with so many of the projects that I brought here, and I just had to give him a quick shout out on that because
appreciate it. Thank you.
You got to give credit when credit's due.
you deserve it, and thank you for that, Alex, because it truly made a big difference for our project. So again, the 54th Street sessions were brought here. We laid the live drum tracks down, but we brought a horn section in. We did horns on 3 of these songs, Carefree State of Mind, Happy Day, and Melody, which was a co-write with Chuck Hall. We're going to talk about it a little bit later in another episode. But all of those processes, and I was so impressed with how you guys were working together that rather than taking those sessions back to my studio and then cutting the vocal tracks and working with Alex on the final vocals, we decided to do them here. And it was a good call because not only did we have great equipment and great mics and your experience and Alex's experience, but we were really able to understand that process and how to go about getting really great lead vocals and how, Alex, you cut the track over and over and over and over and do your comps, and you guys just worked together flawlessly. It was incredible.
It was good.
So let's go on to another question. I'm just interested in your experience on what musicians need to do in order to be prepared, so that you guys can go about doing your job the way that you need to do it, and not have to go back and wear another hat or you want to be productive and efficient. So what do musicians, songwriters, etc., need to do?
I was thinking in myself how I wanted to answer that question. A thought popped into my head. I moved out here from Oklahoma in 1993, and I was in a death metal band. And we weren't out here very long, and we were ready to put together a demo. And so we all got jobs so we could finance this demo, get ready to go, and we are a long ways away from where we got to go record this thing at. And so we all had just said, all right, well, we're going to meet up at this time in the morning. See you later. You think, okay, that should be enough. Well, then when you get there at that time and nobody's there but you, and then you're tracking them down, are they at their girlfriend's house? Are they at the Waffle House getting breakfast? Nobody communicated. Nobody was where they were supposed to be. So the vibe was already shot. So now you got 4 musicians giving each other the stink eye on an hour and a half drive, all in the same car. So then by the time you get ready to, you can already see where this is going.
100%.
So that, I think, has been drilled in my subconscious. And when I have worked with musicians, and we talk about that whole pre-production meeting, and everything's coming together, all right, guys, we've got the dates down, we're ready to come in, we're ready to start recording. Remember, the night before going to the studio is not the night to celebrate. Do not be at the bars until 3 in the morning.
Like a coach for an athletic team.
Yeah. Like not before the game, after the big game. So we don't want to come in hungover. Don't come in tomorrow and bring a 30-pack of beer and say, well, I'm just going to have a couple. No, you're there to work. You know, are we here to party or are we here to work? Because you're sure to put a lot of money and attention into this expensive party.
Sure.
So we've decided, all right, we're not going to party the night before. We're not going to party the day of. We're also not going to sit up here and eat bunches of cookies and drink soda all day and crash our blood sugar. And all of you guys are going to be in the studio with me for the next 10, 12 hours, 4 or 5 days in a row. And you're eating like crap. You have no energy. You don't even care because your brain is shot at that point. So it's fruits and vegetables. It's not glamorous, but it's real. Water. You don't need Gatorade. You're not athletes. You're not running sprints around the studio. Chill out. Just drink some water, maybe a little green tea. Get your body in a good place so when you're ready to perform, you've got the energy and you feel like you're in a good place because the food is taking care of you emotionally in a lot of ways. So it may sound silly, man, but I watch people come in here and with a snack bag full of mini candy bars and a 2-liter of soda, and 4 hours later, I just don't have it today. Yeah, I wonder why. So to be prepared for the studio, the obvious, as I haven't even talked about yet, is knowing your material, new strings or new heads, depending on the instrument you play, right? Knowing the address of the studio. These should be the things that you already know, but you're like, yeah. So put that in your checklist too, among all the other obvious. But the big ones is, don't go party the night before, don't go party in the day of, and let's bring a snack plate of some fruits and veggies and that kind of thing.
Have you ever reminded these guys, if a scenario like that ever came up, and I'm sure that they have it in your career, have you ever reminded them, hey guys, we're going to have to listen to this stuff eventually in a couple days or whatever. Remember, this is like prosperity here. Have you ever had to remind them, it's like, listen, guys, I'm recording this. This is going to have to be stuff that you're going to have to listen back to.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you think that would be, no. I've had a time, we come back like the next day and I'm playing it and the guy goes, why'd you record it that way? Why'd you play it that way? The microphone doesn't lie, man. And he was just convinced that somehow the miking technique made him play wrong, So it's like, come on, guys, let's make sure we run through all this. We know what we're doing. We're going to come back, and I always called it game film. We're going to see how everybody performed that day, and especially if it's live band recording, where the whole band wants they're absolutely just set on recording it live. Right. Notice we didn't talk about that in the ideal setup because that's far from it. Yeah. And again, our room is just not warehouse size for something like that. So
it's like the Black Keys did their first record in a warehouse, and they would take their instruments and their amps to different part of the warehouse. Yeah. I did an interview with Carney, and they would try their mics, and they would do it in different parts of the rooms, and that's how the Black Keys really developed their sound. And it was in a big, huge warehouse. Alex, in terms of that same question, being prepared as a musician in the studio, I know how you're going to answer this, but for our viewers and our listeners, because it's incredible. I love your process.
I'm just kidding.
That too.
No, honestly, I really love the thought process that Duane was talking about. Your mental state coming into the studio is so important. Your preparation, not only physically, mentally, technically, everything needs to be there, but it's really that mental space coming in and not being tired and man, there's a million times where I can think of that I went out and I probably shouldn't have, and I'm like, here I am at the studio, this is great. But
you have the talent to pull it off. A lot of guys don't.
Yeah.
Well, I would even say this: you have the talent to pull it off, but would you have been just that much sharper?
I would have been sharper.
And when we're looking for that much in every performance,
it really is important, and it's the difference between 1 to 3 takes and 3 to 20 takes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
point.
Yeah.
Here's something that I will tell artists sometimes, usually the younger ones, when you're getting this little bit of a vibe from them. I explain to them, listen, if you guys will embrace being musicians, that gives you a better chance of being rock stars. Don't come in here trying to be rock stars before you became musicians. You can't. I have failed epically trying to do that.
Sure.
And so that to me goes back to that. You're not Guns N' Roses going and partying, and none of that. We're going to get a good night's sleep, and don't try to be the rock star yet. Let's be musicians.
That's an interesting take on that, because I feel that a lot of the young musicians, especially the metalheads and the 80s and 90s guys, they wanted to emulate the MTV images that they got of these stars, that they didn't see them rehearsing and woodshedding and practicing and getting ready for a tour, but they saw the MTV, and so they wanted to come in and they wanted to skip that whole process, where back in the old days, where you had the Wrecking Crew, where you had these incredible musicians, and they would go from session to session to session, making their living and recording all these records. And the Muscle Shoals group, they came out of Georgia, Florida. Might have made that wrong. I'm not really sure, but you can see that those people were. They didn't care about being rock stars. They wanted to come down and lay down great tracks.
Yeah. It was more about the music than about the vibe. And that's something that we get with more younger kids that do come in. They will Instagram and video an image of them in here. Like they've got an entourage and a limousine with the air conditioner waiting on them when they're finished, kind of thing. And they Ubered over here. So it's like, let's just drop the image. I understand some of the stuff, that's just where I don't fully understand that. But it goes back again to know your craft, know what it is that you want to do with this craft, be a musician. And when you approach that, all the other cool stuff can come later. A lot of kids don't realize how talented some of these musicians are, that how hard they worked and how truly gifted they really are. And they took the gift and they tied it in with hard work and got them there. So I think that just has to keep being reinforced, not just to younger kids today that are musicians, but even young adults as well, to understand you got to put that work in.
Well, when Eric Clapton conceded, about John Mayer, I don't even think John Mayer knows how good he is. That John put his time in there. And those guys are from two different generations. All right, well, it's come to that time again when we've got to wrap up another episode of The Yard. Thank you for joining us here at The Yard. It's been a pleasure talking not only with Alex Chacon, but Duane Woods, the resident engineer and producer here at Pyramix Studios. Here in Phoenix, if you're outside of Phoenix, look up Pyramix, and you'll be able to find them there. And Duane, it's been a pleasure to work with you on this project. I can't wait to get to another batch of songs and get over here and another opportunity. And of course, working with Alex Chacon as a producer, we will, for all my days on this earth, I hope and plan to work with Alex Chacon. From all of us at Big Yard Nation, we hope when you're out there getting to wherever it is that you're getting to, that all of your dreams come true. Visit us at bigyardnation.com. Join us in the yard. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're at Big Yard Nation. And don't forget to like us and subscribe to us right here on YouTube. If you like what you see, go ahead and like us, subscribe to us. We've got other episodes that I hope and pray that you're going to enjoy. I have a feeling that you will. And so until next time, I'm Darryl Scotti. May God bless you and keep you safe. And from the nation, we're out. Peace.